News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on Blip TV and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. No retribution. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show, and I encourage you to go to reportergary.com, reportergary.com. That's where the Pal Talk News Network website resides. Go there early and often, just like voting in Chicago, for stories that you may or may not see, hear, or read in the mainstream media. Good news today, and I know this is not Washington, but you're obviously watching this. Everybody is. I suggested the fact that Congresswoman Giffords is making such a remarkable recovery, Victoria, is really bringing this nation together.
Well, it could be bringing this nation together, yes. I don't know that it is. You get inklings from members of Congress that indicate that it might not be, but I think to some extent it is. We now have 60 members of Congress who've committed to sit together at the State of the Union, so that's good.
So instead of playing Hail to the Chief, they're going to play Kumbaya?
Yes, they're going to play Kumbaya. That's exactly right, yes.
Yeah. I was making mention of that. Can you imagine that that this is such a big deal that they would actually stomach one another if they're from a different party? This is like junior high school kind of stuff or high school kind of stuff. The jocks are sitting over here, and the kids with the pocket protectors are sitting over there. I mean, and the cheerleaders are over here. It's just ridiculous.
I know. It's tricky. I mean, Representative Paul Brown, who's a Republican, has said he's not going to fall for it. He said on the Scott Hennon show that that this was basically a trick by the Democrats to shut the Republicans up so that the president could continue to spew his venom.
Oh my God! Next thing you know, we're going to hear that a Democratic congressman called those who are opposed to Obamacare Nazis or something. That would never happen.
That'll never happen.
Unbelievable. These people ought to grow up. And you know what, Victoria? Those of us who elect them, we should fire the babies. Kick them out of office. I'm serious. Fire them. I don't care if we agree with their voting record. Anybody who acts like these two nincompoops act should be removed from office, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so interesting that Representative Steve Cohen of Tennessee did that comparison. I mean, he didn't compare Republicans to Nazis. He compared the messaging to Goebbels, the repeating of what he said was a lie to Goebbels, I agree with Jon Stewart of The Daily Show, but you don't have to compare a lie to a lie. A lie is a lie and it stands alone. You don't have to compare it.
See, that's another thing that Victoria and I have in common. We get our real news analyses from Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert. We don't listen to the O'Reillys and the Hannitys of this world to get our political analyses, because unfortunately, to tell you the truth, these two guys, through their satire, are oftentimes more on target than anybody else. Listen, I want to talk about the Obamacare seriously here for a second. Yes. They went through their pro forma thing to satisfy their constituents, knowing for sure that they're not really repealing Obamacare, but they voted to repeal Obamacare. So now they're trying to take it apart piece by piece. Now, as I understand it, perhaps the very first part of it that they're trying to remove is the right of a woman who has been the victim of rape or incest, or to save her life, to get an abortion. Is that correct?
I have not seen the absolute in-the-weeds details, but they do have 2 abortion bills that they are going for. So it would not necessarily be surprising if that was something. They are going for very, very strict language.
Well, Victoria, I'm not an attorney and you're not an attorney, but it would seem to me that there's a little thing called equal protection under the law in the United States of America. And I don't think that they believe that this would stand up to judicial scrutiny. So once again, if I'm correct in my assumption on that, they're again playing to the peanut gallery, aren't they?
Well, I mean, I'm just reporting it. It could be seen that way.
Well, it seems that way to me, and until they answer that question, and I guess I'll have to wait till Monday to see if Jon Stewart holds somebody's feet to the fire, because the cable news networks don't seem to be doing it as well as they probably ought to. Now, the other thing they're trying to do is cut federal spending. But they don't really have a plan to cut federal spending. They just say they're going to cut it. They're going to slice it back to pre-Obama levels or something like that, right?
That's right. Now, the leadership wants to cut spending to 2008, and they plan to have a vote on this on Tuesday before the State of the Union address. But there is a group of Republicans, which consists of about 2/3 of House Republicans, actually, and they came up with a plan that they want to save $2.5 trillion in the next decade. But most of it is not specified, but this does not include defense, Medicare, or Social Security, which is interesting because Secretary Gates is all for cutting spending, by the way, at the Pentagon. But they don't include those things. But they basically include just about everything else, including education, cutting the federal workforce by 15%, including medical research. They would be including police. Obviously, the National Endowment for the Arts, Endowment for Humanities, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, all the things that you would expect, but some things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Something that helps poor women, low-income women, get access to legal counsel so that they can deal with domestic abuse situations. They want to cut that, things like that. Amtrak is going to be cut so much so that it would almost disappear.
I think that's a smart thing to do, by the way. Cut Amtrak, because the cost of gasoline is going to go up to $5 a gallon. I mean, if I was a Republican strategist, I would be saying, you guys are committing political suicide. All politics are local. You start laying off the cops, like they just did, by the way, yesterday. 50% of the cops in Camden, New Jersey, gone. You know, you start laying off the teachers because you're not giving state aid to the states for the states to give to the school districts, and now there are 40 kids in the school, and you get all those pissed off mothers because their kids aren't learning and their fights breaking out and there's no control of the classroom. I don't think that's going to sit very well with the voters, and I would, if I was a Democrat, I would be sitting back saying, these guys are playing into my hands.
Well, I think that's a point. And I think also when you actually talk about the specific cuts that they want to make, and I've seen a couple of interviews today, they do not have specificity. And these are not adjusted for inflation, by the way. They don't have specificity. And so, again, in the same way that over the last several weeks when people have said, interviewers have said to them, what are you going to cut? And this happened during the campaign. And almost nobody was able to answer the question. They are still not able to answer the question because they have not come up with any specifics of what it is they want to cut.
Well, I'll tell you what I think somebody ought to do. Maybe you or maybe some other journalist in Washington. What I would do is I would, since this is a partisan issue, what I would do is I would go to and look at every single earmark program in every single Republican-controlled district, and I would start slicing all of those programs, and I would present that to these members of Congress and say, well, are you willing to cut this program that represents 1,000 jobs in your community, Congressman? And I'll tell you what, you wait and see, ladies and gentlemen, when they start cutting the programs, wait and see what happens. To the victors go the spoils, and to the losers go the scraps. Watch. Follow the money. Watch where they're going to do their cutting. I guarantee you the Republican districts will be far more indemnified from cuts than will be the Democratic district. You want to make a bet on that, Victoria?
No, I don't.
I didn't think so. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
There's my friend Victoria Jones, correspondent for the Talk Radio News Service at our Washington Bureau, bringing us up to date.